Today, Jobless claims top 36.5 million people. Wisconsin Supreme Court strikes down the extended stay-at-home order, and Joe Biden is included on the list of officials who requested to unmask Michael Flynn. Ooh, the drama. We've got a lot coming up, and it starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I'm Sarah Gonzalez, today joined by Tim Young, back in the studio with the Washington Times, and he would tell you all of the other places he's
and less of a beard
with. Yes, and you got the haircut.
I don't look as wise as I did last week.
Well, I didn't want to say anything to hurt your feelings.
I have to act out to raise my level.
You still got the glasses to give you credibility, though, so it's fine. We've got Newsmax host Grant Stinchfield.
Thank you, Sarah.
Back in the house as well, along with Yaku Buyance, who is a filmmaker, a fellow at the Falkirk Center, and you're like, Tim, it would take me 10 minutes to go through all of the.
You always forget my favorite, NFLer. I mean, that's like the biggest.
Former
right
NFL player.
I was going to say the difference between him and me is that he makes money. I just have a lot of titles.
We've got a lot to get into. Let's cover first the jobless claims. They have topped 36.5 million. There are nearly 3 million Americans who filed for new unemployment benefits last week. That has obviously pushed that up. The Dow dropped 300 points in futures trading upon hearing this news. Again, I feel like a broken record at this point because this is something that we've been talking about this entire time, that they have been shutting us down. Hey guys, there are going to be ramifications for this down the road. You're looking at Great Depression levels of, economic recession and depression. And here we're seeing it all play out in the latest jobless claims numbers. Tim, what can you make of this?
This is awful. I mean, we need to open up. I mean, that's going to be the message the entire time. A lot of the topics, looked at them already because I prepared. It's going to be all open up, open up, open up.
It was more than me. I didn't prepare,
me too.
It's a surprise to me. Tim already knows.
I know, but here's the thing. You take a look at this and you realize that all of these people who are on unemployment are getting an extra $600 from the federal government as well. This is increasing our national debt by record rates at the same time. This is insane at this point. We need to open up. People need to be allowed to get back to work.
Yeah, and Grant, I mean, even I agree with Tim's point. We need to open up. Even when we do, though, it doesn't just flip back on, right? It's not a
No,
I
was hoping it would be a light switch, but as you see the policies they're putting in place to open back up, it doesn't appear that it's going to be a light switch. I do think there's going to be a slow growth, though, once we open up. It's important to note, too, though, the Dow recovered. I think it was up 300 points today. So this really is to be expected. I don't think it's any surprise to anybody that the jobless numbers comes in and you're looking at millions of people out of work. And to Tim's point, you have people staying home because of that extra $600. So not only are they collecting state unemployment tax, they're getting that subsidy from the federal government. They're making more money than they were working at their regular job. Now, you tell me what sense that makes. Talk about debt. We're laying this on our kids. Yeah. I got a 10-year-old. You got a kid. You got one on the way. This is on their shoulders. It's sad.
Their shoulders and their children's shoulders. I mean, there's no telling how
we're
far
going
this
three
goes.
generations deep here, Sarah. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm just telling you, I'm about done. Right? Open the country up, all of it. Not 25% here. Be smart, of course. I'm not. Newsom, I'm about to drive to California and sit with this guy and say, what are you going to do when your people can't eat?
You think he'll sit with you? I don't think he'll sit with you.
No, he's a coward. He's a coward. 3 more months is what they're saying to these people. I've got people calling from California saying, you're going to see real issues. Remember, I'm from Africa. Yeah. Seen this movie play before. Mm-hmm. I've seen it play when there's no food in the streets and what happens, okay? I've seen this and it's not good. This is the United States of America. It's time to take our freedom back. This is a freedom battle now.
Yeah. UNICEF actually said, to your point, that 1.2 million kids are expected to starve to death this year because of this.
So the unemployment rate is 14.7. This is also the biggest loss in United States history as far as job loss goes. Numbers obviously highest since World War II. And of course, the unemployment rate under President Trump, it had dropped from Barack Obama at 10%. We saw that drop to 3.4% under President Trump. Now we're all of a sudden looking at 14.7. Does President Trump ultimately, I know it depends on who I have on, what the answer is. So I want to get all of your feedback. Does President Trump pay the price at the ballot box for these unemployment numbers, even though you're seeing it come from a whole new different animal, right? It's not something that he did specifically for the economy that wasn't in response to a global pandemic, and something that was unknown that we were all told that we needed to fear. So does he pay that unemployment price? Does he pay for those unemployment numbers at the ballot box, do you think, Tim?
California's 25th congressional district special election would say otherwise. I mean, that flipped 24 points from the last, from 2018 to now.
Which was Katie Hill's old seat.
It turns out when you brush your staffer's hair.
Yeah, the throuple thing, I guess, is not a
She was
thing
not
Americans
socially
want.
distancing, and I think she needed to there. But no, it really looks like people are going to rebel against their governors in blue states and rebel against blue in general. I think that there's going to be a red wave. I hate to make a bold prediction like that because, but that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Grant, what do you think?
I would say based on jobless numbers alone, it's clear that doesn't help the president. But the left's reaction to all of this does help the president. And I think whether you look at blue governors, blue states, blue city leaders, you look at Los Angeles and what they're doing to keep the city closed. And then, of course, you look at the media, and you have to say, if you're a reasonable person, this is outrageous what they are doing to President Trump and laying this at his feet. Come on. I mean, you talked about Barack Obama, the unemployment numbers were, at 10% at the highest? So, I mean, we're only 4% above where it was, where Barack Obama's worst point was.
And that was just based on bad economic policy.
And that wasn't that long ago either. And exactly, this is an artificial downturn. This is not real numbers based on anything that's bad with the economy. This was simply a silent, weaponized disease that has been used against us.
Yeah, Jaco.
I'm with Tim. You're going to see a red wave. The economy will turn back. We've got smart people in America. We still do. People understand this is not one man's fault. No one man can be blamed for this. They will try to lay it at his feet because what else do they have? This is going to be Hail Mary upon Hail Mary until the end of the year. They're going to grab at straws. The reason Newsom is the guy that's going to hold out, like Dak Prescott is holding out to sign his contract at the Cowboys. Sign the damn contract, Dak, right? Newsom is going to hold out. Here's why. It's the last stand because of that electoral college in California, and they will push this thing as close to November as possible because they don't want you to go to the ballot box. Mm-hmm. Listen to me. They want you to mail in a vote so they can steal this thing from you, America, and do this all over again.
Hey, they had mail-in ballots at that congressional election that the Republicans just took. Yeah. Which is pretty surprising.
Yeah, but I'm just telling you, if they're going to throw Hail Mary after Hail Mary to try and throw it at Trump's feet. It's not his fault. To answer, I don't think so. I think the American people understand why we have the jobless numbers we have. It's not because of his failed policies.
Well, and you also see, to Jaco's point, Tim, you also see, I know you could make the argument that, President Trump ultimately kind of tied the governor's hands behind their backs and made them make this decision. But I don't think so. I think that he was very clear that he was making recommendations based on, these top public health experts. And it was the governors of these particular states who then decided what they wanted to do with the information that President Trump gave to them and the recommendations of the CDC and the top public health experts. So really, when you look at it, the states have some responsibility, I would argue more responsibility in this whole thing than President Trump. What do you think?
Yeah, and it's really apparent from Twitter that Democrats don't understand how the government works. Because at the beginning, they said Donald Trump should use his power to shut all the states down. He refused to do that. Then when he said, I want to open everything up, they were like, you can't do that. So it's very clear that Democrats don't, especially on Twitter, don't understand how policy works and what the president's powers include. Yeah. But no, this isn't going to fall back on him at all. I think people are smart now. We have social media, we have the Blaze, we have 24-hour news cycles, like how I did the plug, and people know to do their own research now, and they're sick of this stuff. Maybe if it was in the 60s, Democrats could get away with this when you only had a newspaper or like one television channel. Not anymore. Yeah.
I want to switch to the latest stimulus coronavirus relief bill that the Democrats are looking at passing. They just recently released it this week. It's another $3 trillion. And apparently there are critics who are saying, now it is 1,815 pages. So they ain't no one going to read that bill. All right, I can tell you we could probably count the number of lawmakers on one hand who will actually go through the reading of that entire bill. But Pelosi apparently snuck in a provision to include what some are calling amnesty for illegal aliens who work in jobs declared essential. It allows some illegals who are engaged in essential critical infrastructure labor or services in the United States to have a, quote, period of deferred action on deportation. It's interesting to me because I feel like one doesn't have anything to do at all with the other. I'm really struggling trying to figure out what coronavirus relief bill has to do with deferred deportation. Grant, can you work that one out for me?
Well, this is what I mean when I say they've weaponized this virus. This is what they do. They've used the virus now to push in every single liberal ornament that they can hang on their own liberal Christmas tree. And so now they want to give amnesty to illegals. Go figure. They've been pushing this for years. Part of that, too, is a mass release of federal prisoners. And they'll tell you these are nonviolent prisoners. But Yako's been around the court system for a very long time. I can tell you these prisoners plea down. They get sent to jail for crimes that are much less than the crimes they were initially accused of, just they don't have to go through trial, and they plead this out. These are violent people that will get on the streets. And so, look, they coddle the criminal, whether they're illegal criminals, whether they're American criminals. That's what you get from the left. And what happens? Good people in America get hurt because of it.
That's right.
Yako?
That's right. You can't say it better than that. It's a fact. And it's with reckless abandon of the American worker. You want to take care of the illegals. How about Nancy Pelosi? You focus on America first. Americans. Americans, right? We're here for a reason. And you're talking to an immigrant, a legal immigrant. I understand the value here. We need to take
I just want to be clear. He said a legal immigrant.
Legal.
Not illegal immigrant.
A very legal
went through it the right way.
Sworn in as a U.S. citizen, took the test, which most of you may fail. Actually.
More patriotic than a lot of Americans who were born here. I will say that as well.
That test is no joke, too, that you have to study for there.
Yeah.
It's no joke. No, you need to actually understand how government works. The left would fail that test. Nancy may fail that test. No, I agree with Grant. Bad people are going to walk around on the street, and other lives are being lost. The collateral damage, again, is unsurmountable.
You saw it in New York. Rikers Island let out like 190 criminals. 110 of them have been rearrested for things like burglary. Literally let out for Corona in New York City, and now they're burglarizing people's homes.
Yeah. And it's not just that. It's that these people are being let out onto the streets, but people like Shelley Luther are spending time in jail for the awful crime of going to work and trying to make money to feed her family.
You pointed at me because I got my hair cut at her salon this past week at Salon Alamo. God bless those people. And by the way, $3 trillion is roughly $10,000 per American. And if that bill doesn't just say $10,000 or $9,000 per American, shove it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yes. It's not just illegal aliens that critics are saying the money is going towards. Also, Planned Parenthood, apparently abortion clinic workers are categorized in this bill, which is called the HEROES Act. That's just so cute and warm and fuzzy. But abortion clinic workers are categorized as essential workers, and the HEROES Act, this new bill, would provide $200 billion in hazard pay for essential workers. Yako, sounds a lot like what Grant was just saying, which is they're just weaponizing this to try to get what they want. The problem I see is will that trickle down to the average American person? Will they see that the left is completely politicizing? First they're shutting you down. They're not letting you feed your family. Then they're playing politics with your life, basically. And your livelihood.
And they're trying to buy you at this point. We're buying people now. We're paying you to stay home. We're paying you to move towards socialism. We're basically slowly killing you and forcing you to socialism. I hope so, Sarah. It shows like this. Honestly, this is a shameless plug. We better crank up the volume. And we really, honestly, Glenn, everybody, we better be getting the word out quickly about what's really happening, because historically the American people has had the fleece wool pulled over their eyes. Historically, we have. I'm just being honest. Our situational awareness is not very high in this country. We're surface level. We don't really go deep, and we need to really go deep on these issues. The way you just said it, unless it says $9,000 to $10,000 per American, shove it, because the money doesn't trickle down, I don't believe. nor does the information. So we're going to have to do a really good job to inform people.
Yeah, we've got a lot more coming up next, including Wisconsin Supreme Court striking down the extended stay-at-home order. We will get into that. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Home Title Lock. So I'm sure that you have, like most people, your home is the most valuable asset that you have. You've invested all of this money into your home. It's maybe your retirement nest egg. Well, what you might not know is that there are online scammers who are just laying in wait, waiting to go get a hold of your home's title. They will forge your signature because all of your home titles, it's all kept online now. Everything's kept online. They will forge your signature on the title. They can go and basically they just own your home and your equity, and they can sell it. They can take out a loan against your equity. They can do whatever it is that they want. They'll leave you with the payments. No bank covers you. No insurance covers you. No identity theft program covers you. The only way I know of personally to avoid this nightmare is going with Home Title Lock. You can go to HometitleLock.com, register your address to see if you are already a victim. You're not going to know it unless you go in, enter your address, and they can check for you. Again, there's nothing else that's checking this system, okay? So you're not going to know if you're a victim unless you go look up your address, HometitleLock.com. Use code WHY, that's WHY, for 30 free days of protection to help you through this crisis if it does turn out that you are affected. But it's worth looking up, you guys. You don't want to lose your nest egg, your retirement nest egg. You got to go to HometitleLock.com. That is promo code YWHY at HometitleLock.com. Good news for those of you smart ones who disagree with all of these stay-at-home lockdowns. Wisconsin Supreme Court has struck down the extended stay-at-home order. It was a 4-3 decision that was just released yesterday. Now, what happened was the case was filed against the DHS Secretary Designee. Her name is Andrea Palm. She was the one who issued the order on orders from the Democrat Governor Evers over in Wisconsin. So in striking down the order, the court ruled that Palm both violated the law in the specific manner in which the rule was adopted and also exceeded her statutory authority in the scope of the rule. They also said that this wasn't involved in this particular lawsuit, but the court did note that they cast doubt on whether the governor could have promulgated an equivalent rule. And the court said, obviously, if there's a forest fire that breaks out, you need immediate action. We understand that. But in the case of a pandemic, which lasts month after month, the governor cannot rely on emergency powers indefinitely. Tim, it's almost like they read this really old, dusty document in making this decision and decided.
Crazy.
I think that's what it's called.
The whole part about. So at one point in our country's history, we were actually ruled by another country, and then we had to fight them off because they had done stuff like this where they limited liberty. It started a whole war, and then we were like, we're never going back to that. And then that's exactly what happened.
No, I think there's an asterisk in that says we're never going back to that unless there's
Orange
a
Man bad.
really scary virus.
Unless Orange Man bad as well. That was also on there. They predicted it. The framers knew everything. Now, all of these stay-at-home orders are unconstitutional. I think when it comes down, it'll go to the Supreme Court. I believe, I'm going to predict that it'll go 6-3 in the Supreme Court when it eventually gets there. I bet one of the liberal justices gets their heads screwed on straight and votes that these are unconstitutional. Because again, it's overreach from an executive branch, and it's overreach on people's personal liberty. Who are they to deem what's essential, what's not? Who are they to deem whether or not you can operate your own business or go walk in a park? This is insane. This entire thing has been insane, and I think that's a very positive move that Wisconsin, their Supreme Court struck it down. The beginning of the end of this.
Yeah, great.
I would like to add that it's insane, not only because it's tyrannical and unconstitutional, but it's also insane because the science does not back it up.
Yeah.
The more information we are getting about all of these people who were infected that have had the antibodies with no symptoms whatsoever, the death rate is plummeting right now to the point where we're shutting down everybody. And then Fauci comes out and says, maybe no more schools. I don't know if you have that on the list or not, but no more schools. Like, are you kidding me? Yeah. How are people supposed to go to work? There's another side of the whole school issue too.
Of course.
And so
the other thing too, sorry.
Go.
Yesterday when Fauci was talking, was it yesterday the Senate hearing? Everything is a blur now to me.
Sunday is the day the big paper comes. That's how I figure out my days of the week. On Sunday, the big paper comes.
Fauci brought up Kawasaki syndrome now.
Yes,
And it's like they keep moving the goalposts to the point that I think at some point the plot points from Sharknado come into this to keep people staying at home under Fauci. Like, it's just getting ridiculous. And Kawasaki syndrome is very curable and people can very rarely get it. It's nuts at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, here I go. Tinfoil hat, right? And I've been accused on this show before, but I wear it in private.
Well, hold on. You're not accused.
We
You
didn't
just
accuse
always,
you on this
you
show.
just always offer it up as a theory.
I'll wear the tinfoil hat. Okay, here we go. I'm just telling you, behind the curtain,
He's Barack Obama.
there's very, very few people that's really, really standing with this president in his close circle. And I believe he knows who they are and who they're not. And Fauci is on a bad path. This guy's pointing in the wrong direction, okay? It's starting to feel like he wants that 18-month lockdown. Remember what they said in the beginning? Mm-hmm. Came out of the halls of the Ivy League establishments. We need 18 months. They want to go there. It is so ridiculous. But one thing that we don't realize is the impact America has on the global economy and what countries do. You've got presidents in Africa, and I firsthand witnessed this past week. They say, because America is talking, because Fauci is saying this, because they're saying no schools, they're on total lockdown. South Africa is on house arrest. You can't go to the grocery store without a note from the police. People going, okay, then come to my house, police, so I can get a note. Yeah. There's not enough police. Yeah. They're arresting people to go to the grocery store. I mean, this is insane. And they're pointing at America, saying, America's, look at California, CNN, and so it's
America's
reckless.
Supposed to be the freest country out here,
Exactly.
and this is what they're doing.
Exactly. It's reckless.
Yeah.
It's really reckless, yeah.
Grant, I want to go back to something that you brought up, which was Fauci's comments about school. President Trump has come out and said, no, we can't do that. We need to open up. I disagree with him on that. I want to get into that conversation because I do think it is a very important one to be had. But let's listen to President Trump's remarks on Dr. Fauci saying that we need to be careful about opening schools.
These are young people. These are students, young students. They're in great shape. They're in great shape. Now, will you have an incident, 1 out of 1,000,000, 1 out of 500, that will something happen, perhaps? But, you can be driving to school and some bad things can happen too. So, no, we're going to open our country. We want it open.
When you say Dr. Fauci is playing both sides, are you suggesting that the advice
Well,
he's giving to you is different?
I was surprised by his answer, actually, because, it's just, to me, it's not an acceptable answer, especially when it comes to schools.
So maybe hopefully optimistic about the president's response to Dr. Fauci. But something that I really, really took interest in that Fauci said when he made these comments about schools reopening was he said, we're talking about treatments. And he said, well, I don't know if there's going to be a potential treatment. But he said, but we're not really talking about treating a student who gets ill, but how the student will feel safe in going back to school. If this was a situation where we had a vaccine, that would be the end of that issue in a positive way. But we don't see a vaccine playing out that quickly. So what I take from this is we're not really looking at logics and facts and statistics. We're looking at making sure that the student feels safe when they go back to school, which is just such a dangerous road to go down.
Can I ask what happened to flatten the curve? It was all about flatten the curve.
That's a great
And then all of a sudden, now it's not flatten the curve. No. Now it's you got to have a vaccine. Now we got to have a cure for all of this.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm reading articles in every city across the country that thousands of students have disappeared. They don't know where they are. They're not showing up for their online courses.
Kids don't have the internet in a lot of places.
And they don't have computers.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't have parents who are good parents and want to take care of them and do that.
My question is, and maybe you guys can help me on this, I'm so skeptical of everybody that I look at Dr. Fauci as a deep state liberal, that he's somehow ill-intentioned in all of this. But I don't know, maybe he's just a big government liberal who finds his job as a doctor that he needs to take care of everybody and he's overly protective. But boy, oh boy, it sure seems like every time he comes out to say something, he's saying it against what the president has just said. And I don't know whether he's ill-intentioned or if he's been in government for way too long. But either way, I'm starting to back the whole fire Fauci idea.
I'll tell you this. You saw a wartime president, because this is wartime times. Maybe not bullets flying, but you saw a wartime president with logic make sound decision, and he's battling. You watch him. He's battling not to throw Fauci under the bus there. Track Fauci. This is a Clinton Foundation guy, okay? This is a guy that's as deep in the deep state as you can get in deep in the deep state. I'm telling you, okay? the funding that came for the universities that is attached to, research and development in the past, just follow the money. Okay? He's going to speak like this. Why are we focusing on children, which we already deemed are the safest in our society? Why not focus on those that potentially had preconditions, showed that they were ill? Something as simple as, hey, if you have had COPD for the last 3-4 years, if you've had upper respiratory problems, we know you're using medicine. This is medicine that's prescribed every month. We're going to spend money and focus on you. Johnny over here, that's 12-year-old that wanted to go play soccer, we don't worry about feel good. The left is all about feeling good.
Well, it's also a backdoor way to continue to collapse the economy, because if you're a single parent, if your parents at home, do you know how much childcare costs? I've learned this, actually, that was what my piece was about this week. I don't have kids. I have a bourbon collection, so I don't understand this. I stayed with a family here.
Those were the days.
Right? That's why I'm fat.
We have kids, okay? This is a big issue.
Well, let me just say, I have a child, so I have the child and the child care and the bourbon collection for when the children go to bed. Go ahead.
Well, mine's 350 bottles, yours is probably 3. But here's the thing. It's a backdoor way when kids have to go to school or can't go to school during the day, they're stuck at home, and those parents or those single parents can't go to a job, or they have to pay for childcare, which is ridiculously expensive. And so it continues to keep things at a terrible level.
Yeah. All right, we've got much more coming up. First, we want to thank our sponsor this segment, Laurel Springs. So we're talking about all of this craziness that's going on with public schools. Are they going to be open? Are you going to be able to send your kids anywhere? Are you going to be stuck in giving them? I know I get in trouble because people who homeschool are like, stop calling it homeschooling. Okay, this is crisis online learning. You're not a real homeschool mom. All right, I got it. But for those of you who don't want to crisis online learn their kids, Laurel Springs is going to be a huge asset for you. They are an accredited online private school for students K through 12th grade, so they can take care of all of it. They recognize that each child is unique. They are unique individuals with their own personal interests, their own learning styles, and they have a very flexible learning program that offers challenging and diverse elective courses. They are accredited by the Western Association of Schools and Colleges and Advanced ED, which means their transcripts are recognized by colleges and universities all over the world. You can register your child today at laurelsprings.com/Y. You'll get a free registration fee that's waived. A waived registration fee. All you got to do is go to laurelsprings.com/WHY for your waived registration fee. laurelsprings.com/Y. Back in a minute. Former Vice President Joe Biden is now being named as one of the people who sought to unmask Michael Flynn. I know, we've covered this at great lengths. I don't want to go into all of the details that we've covered in previous days, but as we know, the DOJ was, for all intents and purposes, dropping the case against Michael Flynn until the judge got involved. Judge Emmett Sullivan has now said that, whoa, hold on, not so fast here. Does anyone else want to give some outside arguments to convince me to drop this case? Third parties, anyone? Because I don't really want to drop this case yet. Yeah, that doesn't stink at all. But apparently now we know not only Joe Biden, but former FBI Director James Comey, former CIA Director John Brennan, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, and former President Barack Obama's then Chief of Staff Dennis McDonough. They all were involved in requesting to unmask Michael Flynn. Now, I know that if you listen to the mainstream media, there is a lot of unmasking's not a big deal. All right, unmasking, they unmask so many different people every year. It's not a big deal. It's legal. It's fine. But my question is, why go through the trouble of having an unmasking system if it was just so routine?
Can I counteract the media argument?
Please.
It is not common to have 36 top administration officials getting down into the weeds and unmasking the name of who turns out to be a political opponent and working for a political opponent. This is such an outrage. You're spying on American citizens. And this whole idea that somehow Michael Flynn was not part of the government in any way. He was the incoming national security advisor. He had every right to be doing what he's doing, including talking to the Russian ambassador. The mainstream media, again, is covering for Barack Obama and Joe Biden. And I'm telling you, Joe Biden's sexual assault deal is one thing. This is a blockbuster because he sat in that office with Barack Obama and they talked about President Trump and Michael Flynn, and the reason they did it is because they knew Michael Flynn had the goods on them and this whole thing was a Russian hoax. They knew the Russian hoax. Michael Flynn had all of it, and they figured we got to squash him and squash him now. That is not the America I live in. Not under President Trump. It certainly was under Barack Obama. It's an outrage.
What do you make of the judge? Because I see this and I'm like, could you be making yourself any more obvious that you are one of these deep staters who wants to protect everyone at all costs? I mean, there's no precedent for the judge to do what he did. Why stick your neck out like that?
So weaponized is the word of the day, okay? Whether they weaponize a virus or they weaponize the judicial system. This is what you get when you have liberal judges on the bench who are working for the politicians in office and trying to run this whole socialist liberal agenda, and they'll do anything to keep their power. This is all about power. It's not about what is right and just.
Yeah, look, you gotta believe, and I do. You gotta believe the phone rings and the judge gets the call and go, "Your last line of defense here.
Yeah.
You got to do something. Your last line of defense." I just want to shout out to Sidney Powell. Okay, thank you, Sidney.
Amazing.
Sidney Powell, keep going. She's an amazing woman that's defending Michael Flynn, doing a fantastic job. It's unjust. We've said, Lady Liberty's eyes are closed. I mean,
I'm sorry I get so upset.
I like it.
Don't ever apologize for that, Grant. That means
I think
good
it's
ratings.
Newsmax is bringing the fire.
That means good ratings, Tim.
I just couldn't imagine a court anywhere in America when both sides say, let's dismiss the case. The judge going, hold on, let's go outside the courtroom now. I'm going to go yell down the street and see if we can find somebody else who wants to keep this going.
It's like when you don't want a couple to get married. Any objection before I say
right,
And then they leave and go for it.
Yeah, no, because it really, truly, I was thinking about that this morning when I was getting ready. I thought, okay, so bring this to a local level, right? So the DA has been given some sort of charge from the police officers, right? From the police that marijuana or whatever the case, and the DA drops the case. The judge steps in and says, no, don't drop the case yet. You would never see that at any sort of local level.
More basic, say that the cop doesn't show up for your speeding ticket and the judge calls the cop on the phone and says, hey, listen, I'll hold the case for another 2 hours if you got time. Take lunch, take your time to get in here, and
I'll just put you on speaker and you can just go ahead and give us your story.
But guys, didn't that happen with the impeachment when we went to the Senate? We want to call more witnesses, please. No, you had your chance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They had that case was signed, sealed, and delivered. We were told that. They had souvenir pens.
Right? This is over. Come on. Yeah, those pens, they walked them ceremonially. It was a slow walk, too.
It was a slow walk.
She probably had an ice cream party afterwards, too. We missed out on the chocolate ice cream party.
Grant, I'm trying to fire you up a little bit more right now. So, you look at
Adam Schiff, you want to mention his name? Because I'll get fired up about it.
I do.
Go ahead.
You look at a lot of people will say, well, you got to be careful when you start investigating a former president because that sets a bad precedent. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying, what happened to the peaceful transition of power that we always had in America? Now you have this president who was involved in this. If we don't investigate it, I mean, the Democrats have already gone there, right? We've already spent the last 3 years talking about Russia and Russian collusion, and they investigated every single person who was tied to President Donald Trump and came up with nothing. They found the crime before they actually found the evidence to the crime. I mean, what happens to America if we don't investigate the highest places that this goes?
If you break the law, I don't care whether you're a former president of the United States, a current president of the United States, or a past president of the United States, or the dog catcher. If you break the law, you need to be investigated. Now, Barack Obama has also not following the whole model of let's not criticize current presidents, let's kind of stay out of the deal. Yeah. This guy is a thorn in the side of President Trump, and I am convinced. You want to talk about a tinfoil hat? Mine's on the floor and I squashed it because there's nothing to do with a tinfoil hat. Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton are still pulling strings with the deep state in Washington. Yeah. They are behind all of this. They were behind the Russian collusion nonsense, both of them, and it's all coming out now. And so it's going to be hell to pay. So I'm sorry, Mr. President Obama, that you may get investigated, but it's about high time we do it. And Biden, too, because they're as dirty as you can imagine.
Yeah, this is an Obama gate if I've ever seen something like, this is just, it is time. Watch. Let's go back to Hunter a little bit. Just pull on that string a little harder.
Yeah, what have we forgotten about him? No one's talking about that anymore.
You want to see Joe unravel? Former President, Vice President Joe Biden, just pull on that Hunter string a little more.
He's working on his next contract with China. Come on, man. He's busy.
Pull on that string.
tough over there.
Tim, your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. Listen, you've kind of covered everything here. But the big thing, and you're missing this from the 50,000-foot perspective, you're not supposed to be able to investigate your political opponents. We were told this for years and years and years after they had started to investigate Trump. They set him up, and now they've investigated him for 3 years. But you're not allowed to investigate political opponents. And we keep like, it's literally, they scream this at the same time while doing the exact same thing, and it's over and over and over again. And I hate to admit it, all the conspiracy theorists have been right. Like, I always reserve comment on these types of things. And like Michael Flynn, I waited the entire time. I was like, and everybody's like, oh, he was set up, it's deep state. I hate that they're right.
They're right. That's why I squashed the tinfoil hat.
Yeah.
Crumple it up.
I mean, and isn't it interesting, though, that there were alternative media sources, BlazeTV included, who were saying from the get-go, this isn't right, this doesn't smell right. I know Dan Bongino had been on this since day one, but that was the only place that you were hearing any inkling of that was from alternative media sources. That was it.
Yeah, and they all got deplatformed for the most part. So, like, that's another thing. Like, you take a look at somebody who I don't agree with half of the things, or probably 90% of the things he says. It's based out of Austin, and does a lot of stunty things. I hate that he was right.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that they were, and I'm glad that these voices are out there, and that's why they need to have their platforms.
Yeah. All right. Back in a minute.
What's next? Not here. What's next? What are
I want to go for a second to San Diego. San Diego County Supervisor says that only 6 of 194 coronavirus-related, that's the key word there, coronavirus-related deaths that were in the county. He says only 6 of the 194 appear to be pure coronavirus deaths, meaning they died from the virus, not just had the virus at the time of their death. Now, he's already gotten some pushback. Public health officer over there in San Diego suggested that he was being callous by saying that, suggesting that, and saying their life is no less valuable than someone's life who does not have an underlying medical condition. This is not just San Diego, how San Diego does it. This is the way that we're counting the numbers throughout the entire country, which to me isn't really an excuse so much as it is an admission that all of this is a farce, and the numbers are probably much less than they're telling us that they are. Grant, you're looking at me like you agree.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, it is a farce, and the numbers aren't what they're telling us. I mean, nobody dies of natural causes anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
You only die of COVID.
Right. And can we just say, by saying this is a farce doesn't mean we don't believe that coronavirus is real, right?
Of
coronavirus
course.
is a thing.
Yeah.
Of course
but
it is a thing.
the inflated numbers is the problem.
The problem is you've now incentivized hospitals to declare coronavirus as the cause of death. They're getting, I don't know what the number is to you. It's like $10,000 or $13,000
13.
every patient that dies if they label it coronavirus.
The penny drops right there.
That's it.
That's where the penny drops. It's great. They're instructing, they're suggestively hinting in a 7-page document to doctors across this country to potentially consider adding corona to the death certificate.
I think they're telling them to do it. I don't even think suggesting.
This foul play all throughout. We did have that conversation this morning with Nan Hayward. It's foul play. And by the way, the virus isn't the killing agent. It's conditions in the body, it's lungs and pulmonary function. There's so many things happening. So to just go, coronavirus killed that person, you better be dang sure that it wasn't something else.
Yeah. And not to mention, Tim, just this move, the moving of the goalposts that we've discussed, I mean, just at great length for the last, how long have we been stuck in this? 8 weeks? It feels like Groundhog's Day every single day. But the moving of the goalposts where, you've got this collectivist mentality now that's growing, that the media and that all of these health experts are pushing, that well, their lives are no less valuable than yours. Well, we're supposed to all modify. We're supposed to all shut down now for 6 people in one county. I mean, where does it end?
It doesn't end. And by the way, I am an expert on this because I tweeted out, I was looking at the actual coronavirus numbers on the CDC website, and the actual deaths just from coronavirus, from COVID-19, are about half or less. I tweeted that out. BuzzFeed wrote a debunking article about my tweet alone. Snopes wrote a debunking article about it. This is totally politics. And when me, a comedian who just happens to have a bit of a political following, tweets something out like that, just questioning. I just said, hey, why are the numbers lower here? And both BuzzFeed and Snopes and then a pile of other garbage outlets and blogs try to debunk me. that tells you something's up.
Yeah. Yeah. Grant, I mean, really, you look at the idea of individualism that has made this country so great. And, you know, we all have rights and we all have responsibilities that come with those rights. And then you look at this collectivist mentality that, when taken to its extreme, is just communism, right? That everyone has to work for this common good, that I'm here to protect you, that, I mean, yes, all life is valuable. As pro-lifers, of course, we think that all life is valuable, but you can't just factor in, oh, there's a couple people dying in this county, so we're going to shut the whole thing down or modify everything to protect people from dying. Correct me if I'm wrong, but death is kind of a whole part of this whole thing we call life.
It's part of life. You know, I actually interviewed Rudy Gatlin of the Gatlin brothers, and he's 67 years old, and he took the view of, look, when you got to go, you got to go. I'm not changing my whole life. And I think that's where politics start to come to play in this too. You see those on the right that are saying we're going to plow through this, we're going to get through it, and those on the left are running scared. And liberals typically tend to run scared. You know what? We're Americans. We're not supposed to be scared. We're the strongest country in the world. Let's act like it for a change.
And you can't come as the left and tell me every life matters when it's convenient for you.
Right.
Okay, you can't. Is it or is it not? Because if it is, then you have to consider the collateral damage, the suicide rates through the roof in this country, children dying from hunger in this country. Does that life matter? No, it's when it's convenient, Sarah. Then it matters all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's just COVID-19 deaths.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? Do you remember it was like 8 or 9 weeks, maybe longer than that. It might have been 3 months ago.
I feel like we
were talking about COVID. You may have been here, and it had not been a really big thing. This is like one of the first times it was ever started to get mentioned. And you asked me, "Are you worried about it?" And I said, "No, I'm not worried about this. I don't think." Everybody says, "Oh, Grant, you're wrong." When you said, "You know what? I'm still not worried about it. I still have a different feeling than I had that day, except they ruined my country over this."
Right. And with that being said, you can understand why certain people with certain immune conditions or underlying health conditions may be worried about that for them.
Of course.
But that doesn't mean you put restrictions on the rest of the country.
Right.
That means that person makes the individual decision here in America, where you're allowed to do that, the individual decision to stay home, to modify their life, to wear a mask everywhere, to sanitize their hands. I mean, there are so many other things that people could do if they are in fact scared themselves, which is a great reminder for all of you out there. If you are a big fan of the lockdown, you know when those restrictions are lifted, you don't have to leave. The government is not actually forcing you to leave. If you choose to stay home forever and you figure out a way that you can make that happen, you go for it.
Can I just say,
please, real quick,
if you're one of those people driving around in your car solo with a mask on, I hope you stay home when the lockdown is over.
You're going for runs with a mask on?
But with the window open.
Get back in your
I saw one
house.
yesterday, mask on, window open.
Oh no!
You got to take your mask off to smoke, though. Just remember.
That's my husband saw someone in the car with the mask down here with a cigar.
Oh yeah.
Whatever. Maybe his wife made him. I don't know. Back in a minute.
Good luck.
None of it makes any sense.
I was at a meeting and this guy walks in, this huge guy, really nice guy, and the conservative.
For you.
Oh yes.
All right, yesterday's poll question, what is Joe Biden's biggest weakness in November? Well, you guys agreed with us that mental faculties is the big one. 72% of you said mental faculties, followed by his corruption at 18%. His record with China coming in at 6%, and the Tara Reade allegation at only 4%. Gosh, isn't that sad?
Yeah.
When there is an allegation of sexual assault in 2020, where we're told believe all women, and that is actually the least of Joe Biden's worries. Oh, you can't feel good if you're Joe Biden right now. All right, today's poll, who has the most to hide? You ready? Here are your options. Obama, Biden, Hillary, or Trump?
Oh.
That's hard. I mean, I guess I would say Hillary just because I think that woman is basically the devil.
Hillary's the OG. She's been at this for like 30. Actually, no, Biden would be the OG before the Clintons.
Yeah.
I'm still going to go with Hillary.
Okay. All right. Tim says Hillary. What do you say?
I'm going to say right now, you know, Hillary's pretty smart. She probably has a lot to hide, but she's probably done a good job of it. I'm going to go with Biden because he's probably done a bad job of it.
Okay. All right. That's fair. Yaku.
That doesn't mean he has more to hide, though.
Well, he's got
You answer the question how you want to.
Hillary.
Okay. All right. Grant just wanted to. He just wanted to be a little different.
That's all. Thank you, Sarah.
Let us know what you think. You can go to the Blaze's Twitter. We'll see you tomorrow.
We need a little tension.
That's it.
Tension.